Welcome to the Staff Room, an education podcast which takes a look into the world of pedagogy. In this series, we meet educators far and wide to chat about teaching and learning and share outstanding practice. My name is Michael Royale and I'm sitting here with Tessa Johnson, and we're coming to you from Corpus Christi College in Perth, Australia.
In this episode, we'll take another look into the world of learning technologies. This time, we'll be speaking to international keynote speaker and tech guru, Craig Kemp, who will be speaking to us about the inspirational ways ICT is shaping teaching and learning at his school, Stamford American International School in Singapore.
The work that I try and do is get schools to think about the pedagogy side of things, not just going for the latest and greatest things and throwing it in there. I think that VR does have a place in schools, but I do think it's important to think about the context of each individual school, whether it adds value.
We'll also be chatting to Lou Cimetta, an experienced education consultant who sees iPad as a key tool in enhancing both teaching and learning.
I also think it's incredible because you have a camera, you have the ability to record audio, so all of a sudden we're sending out photographers and videographers and musicians and artists who can show their learning through using these tools.
I'm Michael Royale.
And I'm Tessa Johnson.
And this is the Staff Room.
Okay, so we're in part 2 today of our podcasts based in technology, and some great guests sort of lined up today, starting off with Lou Cimetta, who we've actually both met before, haven't we?
Yeah, Lou's been really great because, as an Apple Distinguished School, she's been able to teach us lots of different ways to incorporate some of the Apple apps into our classroom. So one thing I'm really looking forward to learning from her is how she's actually used the iPad to assist in meaningful learning. And also, I know that she is a major advocate for flipped learning, which is a bit of a buzzword, and I'm looking forward to actually learning exactly what that means and how it can be beneficial to a classroom practice.
Yeah, great. I hear the word flipped learning sort of thrown around all the time, and I think, what is flipping learning?
Yeah.
But no, obviously
messy.
It does sound messy. I'm personally more excited, really, really excited to hear about virtual reality and how that can shape a classroom, because I've tried a little bit of virtual reality before. Blew my mind. Cannot figure out how it works, but was transported to a hillside in Japan and painted in the air, and just it was just amazing. But how is that going to have relevance in the classroom? And also this concept of mixed reality. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's like where you're seeing your reality, but you've got these objects that are make-believe, I suppose, and you're working with objects, but in your own reality. It sounds absolutely phenomenal. That
sounds amazing. It's just the idea of emerging technologies and, how we can actually use them to our benefits. It's great.
All right, well, let's get started. With over 34,000 followers on Twitter, Craig Kemp is with us to share his passion for ICT and how it can be effectively implemented into the curriculum. So, Craig, thank you so much for meeting with us today. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to talk to you.
Pleasure to be here.
Oh, fantastic. We were just wondering if you could give our listeners just a bit of a background about your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Craig Kemp. I'm Head of Educational Technology at Stamford American International School in Singapore. My school is large, 2,800 students, 400 staff, from 2 years of age to 18 years of age. I have a team of 6 coaches that work across our school, supporting the purposeful integration of technology and innovation into the curriculum and into classrooms. On top of that, I think I'm connected. I love being connected and connecting with others. So you'll probably find me on Twitter 99% of the time, connecting and engaging, discussing. My passion is helping other people learn. And connecting and engaging. So what I do outside of school is run workshops globally, speak at conferences, and I guess my passion areas are the purposeful and authentic integration of technology, but also global connections and collaborations as well, and helping people get connected and engaged in what I think is the best professional learning possible. That's free and that's online.
Fantastic. So speaking about Twitter and your blog posts, one of your most recent blog posts was titled Pedagogy First, Technology Second. And as this is like a technology themed podcast, we'd just like to talk to you a little bit about this. So is this your philosophy, and if so, why?
Okay, yeah. So I love blogging. So I try and blog. My blog started many years ago as a graduate teacher, about 15 years ago, and I was blogging for just to show my professional growth. So it was really personal. I kept it to myself, and then I realized that other people wanted to see it. So that's where my blog grew from, and I realized that no message is not worth sharing. So I wanted to share my message out, and I try and encourage other people to do the same. So one of my major philosophies, I guess, that I try and live by is pedagogy first, technology second. And I've been in so many schools, not only here, New Zealand, Australia, but globally, where that's simply, it's stated, but it's never practiced. So we all get money given to us to do this sort of thing, and then we go and buy the greatest thing because we think it's going to add value to student learning, but we don't do the value-based approach, I guess, when we look at our curriculum and we look at what our context of our school is, and we see, is this, I guess, ask ourselves the question, is this going to add value to student learning? If the answer is no, or if you hesitate on that, throw the tool out the window. There's no point even looking at it if it's not going to add value to what you do.
Fantastic. So have you been in a school where they have just gone out and bought the new latest fandangled thing and haven't actually put their pedagogy first and just sort of put it to waste? Could you give an example of that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it happens all the time. I see it so often. Like I say, I do a lot of work in schools in Australia, and I see it all too often there, but it's not just there, it's everywhere. I think it's something that happens too regularly. One of the examples that I guess I would use would be probably a school that I worked with in New Zealand, and it was quite early on in the iPad journey when iPads were just coming out. So of course the school thought it was the perfect time to just bring in a whole class set of iPads in a school where, and just to give context to it, where one desktop computer was used by the whole class, including the teacher. So bringing this in with no infrastructure, with no pedagogical thought, there was no links to curriculum. It was literally a toy or a tool. But what we managed to do with that school is really turn that around. And I think turning around being technology first and pedagogy second and flipping that is much harder than doing it right in the first place. We did manage to flip it, but it took a long time, and it takes a lot of planning and thoughtful process, I think, to see how these tools can actually be used authentically and purposefully to add value to student learning. So we managed to do it, but it did take time, and I think the process that we went through was bringing every stakeholder on board to make sure that everyone had a voice, and no voice was more important than student voice. And they were quick to say, well, we know how to use these tools, but our teachers don't. So how are we going to make sure that our teachers are trained and upskilled to the level where they are going to be able to lead learning with these tools to add value?
My next question is about virtual reality, because VR is something that we're actually currently integrating into our school. And I'm curious to know what role do you think VR can play in education?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a buzzword right now. And for me, it's exciting, but it's also scary, because I think the work that I try and do is get schools to think about the pedagogy side of things and not just going for the latest and greatest things and throwing it in there. In saying that, we have VR kits at our school. So we've got 2 full class sets of virtual reality. We bought in some Xiaomi smartphones. I've written a blog post about it for anyone that wants to learn more. Just go to mrkempnz.com and search VR, and I've got all of the details there about what we bought, what we used, how we integrate it. Basically, we trialed it and we found value in it for the context of our school. I think that VR does have a place in schools, but I do think it's important to think about the context of each individual school, whether it adds value. For us, it does. We use it in the form of virtual field trips, predominantly using tools like Nearpod, and Google Expeditions is the main one we use, the main app, I guess, that we use to take students on a journey of something that they cannot physically get to. We cannot get easily to a farm, as silly as that sounds here in Singapore. I can't take students down the road to a farm to see how animals work and the processes that go on a farm, but I can hop on a virtual field trip and do it instantly with the goggles. And what we're sort of battling with right now is what are the health and safety implications of that right now? It's something that we don't know yet, and it's something that is being trialed and tested right now. So it's something we're really cautious about. And the age of students we work with, something we're really focusing on is short and to the point. Make them 10 minutes or less, something exciting that you're working on. So it's making sure that something is ready, I guess, to roll out. The thing that I'm most excited about here is more than virtual reality. I think that has potential coming up is mixed reality. So we're working with Microsoft HoloLens with a developer called Serlio right now, and looking at HoloLens, which is essentially taking away the virtual element to make it real world. So virtual closes you off and puts you in a virtual environment. Mixed reality, essentially it's like putting on sunglasses and being involved and fully integrated into a scenario or situation. So we're working with them to develop apps for particularly secondary school. So one of the ones we've worked on right now is in secondary science, looking at particle physics and atoms and looking at how that can be brought to life. We've also developed with them, our students have said, I'd love to be able to, and teachers, I'd love to be able to dissect something and then be able to go back and edit it if I get something wrong. So we've created like a virtual lab where students can put on the mixed reality headset, physically pick up a heart, dissect it, look through it, pick up something else like a nitrogen atom and a helium atom, put them together and see what the reaction is without any danger or safety implications. And then you can go back and do it again. And there's also things that we're working on where it's a multi-person, multiplayer experience, and toying with gamification with that as well. So it's kind of exciting. I think VR does have a place to play, but I think that's going to be very quickly replaced with mixed reality.
That just sounds insane, to be honest. It sounds very like, it almost sounds a little bit like Star Wars. It's it must be very, very exciting times.
It really is.
Not just for education, but clearly the world there as well. So my next question is about your hashtag, What is School, which is obviously highly trending online and on Twitter. Yeah. Just tell us a little bit about how you came to make that and sort of what's happening with it at the moment.
Yeah, so it was, I guess it's my baby, I guess, with a colleague that I met online, never met face to face. I think that's the beauty of being online. You connect with amazing people, you form relationships, you create things together. So what I've managed to do is do that with someone, and that someone is Laura Hill was the person that I created it with, and she is an author and an educator and an artist out of the USA. We came together and had a discussion about what is school. We had all these chats online. We wanted to create a space that was comfortable and open for anyone to join in. We didn't want it to just be fourth graders. We didn't want it to just be science teachers. We wanted anyone to come along, and we wanted it to be truly global. What we noticed was a lot of chats were either American-based or UK-based or Australian-based, but they weren't really globally focused. So we created about 4 years ago. The whole idea around it was with this hashtag, bringing people together. It's all about telling a story and creating that journey. So what happens is every week it's Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time in the US, which for Singapore is Friday, 7 a.m. And I think for Australian Eastern Standard Time is 9 a.m. Friday mornings. Is every week a new topic. Normally I'm moderating it with someone else, so we never do it alone. We bring other people in. We have different topics that people are passionate about, and for 1 hour we throw 6 questions out there on a topic, and people come together and discuss it. So the one coming up this week, for example, is all about tutoring. So what value can tutors add to education in and outside of schools, and what do teachers expect of tutors? How can they bring people in? And we try and bring people, and we see the same crowd every week, which is amazing, but we also get new people every week, and genuinely anyone is welcome at any time. And that's the beauty of it. And I think on the trend of the hashtag, and I don't think it's, by the way, anything spectacular, because there's lots of hashtags out there. It's all I've done is with Laura put together a hashtag and started something. The real power behind it is the professional learning network, the PLN, that jumps in and partakes in it, because without them there's nothing. So really we've just created a space and filled it with people, which is kind of cool. what we're trying to do here, and I think what schools should look at doing, is really harnessing the power of social media to tell a story. So our school hashtag is SAIS Rocks, so Stamford American International School Rocks. Our teachers use it. We've got over 80 teachers connected on Twitter sharing their learning stories. It's not a place to advertise to parents on what's coming up. It's a place to tell a genuine story. So I could hop on Twitter right now, look at that hashtag, and know exactly what's happening in classrooms across our school. So as I'm looking here right now, I can see that our PE teacher's just tweeted some stuff out that he's been doing with his grade 5 class. There's some stuff on here in grade 3 with a project that they're working on. There's a math example. So all of that's happened literally within the last 2 hours. And it's super powerful, and it's for us as educators to learn from each other. So that's another thing that's really easy to do, is set up a learning story or a hashtag for your school.
Do you ever get teachers that get sent to your school to actually look at that practice? Because you sound like a real lighthouse school. Do they ever come in and observe and try and implement them themselves?
Yeah, definitely. And we do, frequently, probably more often than we can always accept. But we really enjoy having people come in, because it's not only sharing what we do, but also learning from others. Because I think we're only partway through our journey as well. And I think that the whole mindset thing is that we are continuously growing, that we don't want to ever be stagnant. We want to continuously grow and learn from other people. So if people come in and visit, we always ask for them to share about what they do as well, because we want to be learning from them. But yes, we definitely do.
Awesome. My final question for today, Craig, is what is your favourite app or software?
Yeah, good question. I guess my mindset on apps and software is that I want them to be creation-based. So I don't like apps and programs that are just like our upper elementary divisional principal here, Claire Johnston, and you can find her on Twitter as well, always says no tap apps. So we don't want apps where kids are just consuming content, tap. We want kids to be creating content. So creation over consumption. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to say 2. So my first one is Keynote on and Apple devices, on iPads or on MacBooks. Keynote is, for me, the ultimate creation tool. There's so much you can do with Keynote. You can follow Adam Torrens, who's a teacher here at Stanford. His handle is atorrens84, doing some amazing things with Keynote. The other one, and I'm going to flip between 2 that I love, quick shout out to Seesaw, because I love Seesaw, but right now the app that we are loving is Flipgrid. Flipgrid has the ability to connect, create, collaborate, can be on a student level or a teacher level. We've just bought a whole school license for Flipgrid because we've trialed it and tested it and see the true value in it. So I think Flipgrid has to be it. I want to throw out other ones as well, like Explain Everything and any creation-based app essentially, but I'm going to stick with Keynote and Flipgrid.
That's your final answers.
Yeah, final answer.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today, Craig. Just before you go, could you just repeat the name of your website and your Twitter handle for our listeners, please?
Absolutely. You can find me at mrkempnz.com, mrkempnz.com. My New Zealand accent might put a few people off. And my Twitter handle is at mrkempnz. Reach out. I'm always happy to help, collaborate, connect. What you see is what you get. Reach out to me, DM me, contact me. I'll put you in touch with people and help you get connected.
All right. Thanks again, once again, Craig, for speaking to us. And yeah, we wish you all the best in your educational journey.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon.
Originally trained as an early childhood teacher, educational consultant Lou Cimetta sees technology as a powerful way to maximise learning. Having held leadership positions in several schools, Lou has worked as an educational development executive with Apple and has presented at state and national conferences. So Lou, can you give our listeners some background on your work and experience in education?
Sure. So as you said, I'm a teacher. Started out as an early years teacher, teaching kindergarten and pre-primary in year 1, and then taught through most of the rest of the year levels in primary schools and also held leadership positions in schools. Then about 13 years ago, I moved to the Catholic Education Office and I changed my focus. So instead of focusing on pedagogy and working with children, I started focusing on andragogy and working with adult learners, and in particular teachers and school principals. And I did a whole variety of different things in that role, things like being a literacy and numeracy coach, helping schools create professional learning communities, and then also did lots of work in digital learning as well, before finally moving to Apple and working with them for 3 years as a development executive, which basically means focusing on how do we use technology really well so it makes a difference to student outcomes. And then very excited this year to be running my own company, providing educational consulting, coaching, professional learning, creating professional learning packs for other organisations, and creating education content.
Fantastic. In your time as an educator, how has the classroom environment changed?
Well, I've been around a while, so I have to be honest, when I started teaching, there was no digital technology in the classroom, not even a computer. I didn't own a computer when I started teaching. So while I was in the classroom, we had the first computers coming into schools. My school started with a lab where we had enough for 1 between 2 when you took your class there, which was pretty amazing for the time. Then we slowly saw technology starting to come into the classroom. I was around for the rise and the fall of the interactive whiteboard. And it was also around when iPad arrived, and that started to change everything. So it's been, there's been a lot of change, but what's exciting for me is as these technologies have come into the classroom, it's opened up new ways we can work as teachers to really make learning exciting for kids.
Wonderful. So you're obviously very passionate about how technology can be integrated into the classroom. And you've seen, obviously, many examples of good practice all over the world. So what's some of the best practice you've come across in schools?
Yeah, look, there's amazing things happening in schools locally here in Western Australia, nationally, and certainly around the world. If I had to pick out one particular practice that really seems to make the most difference for me, it's flipped learning. And I want to qualify by saying not necessarily flipped learning where homework is involved, but where teachers are actually creating their own educational content that students can access at point of need, whether that's at home or in the classroom. Because what it does is it clones the teacher. It means they can be in more than one place at a time, and that means we can start to personalise learning for kids. And when we can do that, so they can work at their own pace with their own interests and to really start to unpack things, we really see a difference in their growth. And I think for the teacher as well, it unchains you from the front of the room and gives you that chance to have those deeper relationships with kids.
So just for our listeners, could you just clarify what you mean when you say flipped learning?
Sure. So when I'm talking about flipped learning, I mean that rather than standing at the front and delivering content live to the 20 or 25 or 30 kids in your classroom, you actually take the time to record that content using video, using audio, using images ahead of time, and you make that available in a place online where the students can access it. Because what we know is some kids will get a concept the first time, which is great if you were standing in the front of the class live teaching it. Some kids need to see it 2 or 3 times. What happens to them? And what about the child who got it in the classroom, but by the time they got home to do their homework, has forgotten? Or the child who already knows this concept and is ready to move forward to the next one? When we start to create our own educational content as teachers, we're really changing the way the classroom works.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. So what does it take for tech to really work in a school?
I kind of think of it on 3 levels. I think you need your tool set, you need your skill set, and you need your mindset. So obviously you need to have all the infrastructure in place, you need to have the right equipment, it needs to be set up well, you need to have ways to maintain that, all of that technical side of things. You need to have strategies in place for your people as well. So how are you going to build capacity? How are you going to pay for this? How are you going to make it work over time? And then once you have the tool set in place, you need to build skill set. How are teachers going to learn how to use this? Not just when you first get it, but over time, continuing to build their skills. How are leaders going to learn? How are students going to learn? And even parents. We need to make sure we're taking parents on the journey as well. But lastly, and most importantly, for me, it's about mindset. Why are you doing this? Why are you putting technology in your school? Because if it's just because the school down the road has it, it's not going to work. You need to know why you're doing it. If you're there to make a difference to student outcomes, and you're really clear about that, and you're clear about how you're going to do it, then that changes the decisions you make on a day-to-day basis. It changes what you do in terms of bringing in professional learning, in terms of how you coach your staff over time. So I think the most important thing is to be very clear about why when you start.
With that mindset that you just said as well, do you think it's extremely important that all teachers are on board with it instead of that any idea of resistance from them as well?
Sure. I think I'd start by saying you want all your leadership on board. It doesn't mean everyone in leadership has to be fantastic at using technology, but in the schools where it works really well, it's not just the principal and the ICT coordinator. Every member of leadership is committed to it. And then, yes, you do need to then build the capacity of your teachers. Whenever you go into a school, you're going to see a whole range of ability with teachers, right through from people who are absolutely amazing, flying out the front, where the majority of staff are looking at them and going, I don't know what they're doing, through to your average teacher plodding along, just wanting to make it happen, and through to those who've never really picked up technology before and are really scared. So you have to plan when you're working with the school, with the staff like that, to make sure you've got opportunities for everyone to move forward. And fear is natural. Fear is normal when, we all respond to change by being a little bit worried. And I think it's particularly hard for us as teachers because our work is quite private. We go into a room with 25 kids and we never see anyone else teach. So how do we know if we're any good? How do we know if, what we're doing is okay or average or really good or terrible? And I think there's a little bit in us as teachers that's always a bit worried we're not that good, when in fact we're doing amazing things. So I think for teachers, you need to understand when you're using technology, it's not going to happen overnight. It's a journey, and you're going to have to learn a little bit and a little bit and a little bit more. It's just like you wouldn't pick up a pencil and expect to draw an amazing piece of artwork. You wouldn't pick up a guitar and be able to play an amazing song. Technology is the same. It's about just doing a little bit at a time and building those skills so that over a year or two, it all becomes that little bit normal, and then you can take on more skills and more skills.
That's great. So which app or tool do you find really has an impact on learning?
I'm a massive iPad fan. I think when iPad launched in 2010, it changed everything. Because all of a sudden we went from having the interaction on a mouse or on a wall that was controlled by a teacher to having a touch screen in the hands of every child. And it was really intuitive. I mean, I work with quite young children. 3 and 4 year olds are doing amazing things with iPad before they know how to read and write. And it makes it really accessible. I also think it's incredible because you have a camera, you have the ability to record audio. So all of a sudden, we're sending out photographers and videographers and musicians and artists who can show their learning through using these tools. So, yeah, that's absolutely my favourite tool.
I think when we think of all the different types of learning styles as well, it's so good to be able to do things visually and orally and include all those different areas of learning as well.
Absolutely. I was recently working with an education support unit, and they were working with the students on their reading out loud and their fluency. And we said to them, look, we're just going to pop the iPad here and let's just record you while you read. And, the boys were a bit like, oh, okay, if you have to. And so we recorded it and we said, okay, let's play it back. And it was fascinating to watch, to see these boys listening to their work. And when it finished, they turned around and looked to their teacher and said, can I do that again? I reckon I can do it better. So I love to see those moments where it unlocks a door for a student and gives them those opportunities, regardless of their ability or of their learning style.
So for teachers who are inexperienced or are unsure about how to actually implement technology, can you offer any advice?
Yeah, I think it's one step at a time. I think seeing is believing. So if you can go and see other teachers using technology in the classroom, particularly if it's in a subject you teach, that really helps to make it real for you. And then to just choose one thing to change in your practice and do that really well. I think there's sometimes a misconception out there that the more apps, the better. We almost become appaholics, always looking for the next great app. But you can actually have a small collection of 6 or 8 apps that you can use throughout the year in many different ways in your classroom. So I think as a beginning teacher, even if you just choose 1 or 2 and use those again and again and really push the boundaries with them so that your students aren't really worried about what the app does anymore. They're thinking about how to demonstrate the learning. I think that's a great place to start. I think, now more than ever, teachers are in a great position to be learning about technology because there's so many resources online to help them. There's online professional learning. There's people you can tap into on social media. So The learning is out there. You just need to go and find it and choose that little bit at a time.
Yeah, that's actually a great segue into our next question. If you had to delete all the educational apps except for one, which one would you save?
I'd save the camera. I think if you just had the camera and nothing else, you can do amazing things. And this is on an iPad, because you think about it, you can take photos, you can record videos, you can record your voice. You've got time lapse, so you can actually record processes happening over time. So you can record a science experiment, or you can record how the weather changes the environment. You've got slow-mo, so if you're learning a new skill in phys ed, you can actually slow that down and see it. There's so much potential in the camera that with just that one app, you can do amazing things in your classroom.
It's very interesting because I feel the camera is something that's very underused in the classroom as well. And it's a lot of fear, I guess, around the camera that are the students taking photos of me as the teacher, or they're taking photos of each other, or they're on Snapchat, or so it really should be used, you're right, for all those fantastic reasons.
Yeah, and I think you need to put your digital citizenship in place right from the beginning. I mean, I work with 4 and 5-year-olds, and we actually teach them, before I take a photo of my friend, I need to go up and ask them, excuse me, is it all right if I take your photo? I'm going to use it for this. So right from the beginning, they get used to that and asking people's permission and understanding intellectual property. I think as time goes on and students become more used to having that technology in their classroom, we're going to see those skills start to come through.
Wonderful. Now, Lou, you're obviously you're very active on Twitter. Could you suggest one inspirational teacher to follow on Twitter?
That's a really hard question because there are a lot of amazing teachers on Twitter. So I don't know if I can pick one particular teacher, but I can certainly tell you about a type of teacher that I really like to follow and share their work. There are some great teachers out there who provide a window into their classroom, and I think of people like Melissa Miles at Infant Jesus, Jamie Clark at Corpus Christi, and what they do is they actually take you into their world. They'll say, I'm teaching this, and share the concept, and then they'll say, and we use this tool, and here's how we did it, and then they'll actually share an example of the student's work. So they make it real for you. It's like you've actually had a chance to go into their classroom. And I know that really helps people who are learning to get lots of new ideas. So they're the kind of people I'll be retweeting and sharing because I think there's so much that you can learn from their journey.
Awesome.
That's great. And it also shows how willing people are to collaborate now when it comes to educational resources through social media and the likes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say to people, don't wait until you think you're an expert to share what you're doing in the classroom, because not everyone wants to learn from experts. Sometimes they want to learn from someone who's about 2 weeks in front of where they are. So as soon as you've done something, put it out there. If it went wrong, put it out there and ask people for the advice, because there's this great community that will support you.
Now, what's your favourite app? And I'm going to suggest that we steer clear of the camera on this one, so I'm going to throw you in the deep end a bit here. But what is your favourite app on the iPad?
Well, we have already mentioned it, because my favourite app is Twitter, because Twitter gives me my professional learning. I can customise who I want to follow. I follow teachers, I follow leaders, I follow people in different organisations. I can, adjust it to suit my interests, and whenever I'm ready to learn something, even if I've only got 5 or 10 minutes, I can dip into that Twitter stream and pick something up. It took a while to get used to at the beginning. Sometimes when you first use Twitter, it's overwhelming because you feel like you have to read everything because you might miss something. But what I've learned over time is to just drop in and out and just say, I need something in this particular area. I'll just go and have a look. And I learn something new every day there, and try to give back as well and share things with others. So Twitter's definitely my favourite app.
So thanks so much for all your responses, Lou. Anything on the agenda this year?
Oh, lots on the agenda, lots of working with schools, and I'm working with a couple of different companies creating some professional development units, and I'm about to go travelling as well, and I'm very excited that this June I'll actually be in America when ISTE is on, the International Society for Technology and Education, so I'll be joining the other 16,000 teachers that go along to that, and I'm very excited about being able to access some new learning.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time with us. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and we've probably just both learnt a lot just sitting here and
Definitely.
feeling quite inspired ourselves. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Please follow Lou on Twitter. Her handle is @BlueprintLearn. And head over to her website, blueprintlearning.com.au. So, Tess, what are some of the biggest takeaways that you'll take from the Craig Kemp interview?
Oh, he was really so informative. Took away so much. A few things I really liked. I liked his blog post, Pedagogy First, Technology Second, because I think, we're living in a day and age where we just always want to have the biggest and the best thing, but a lot of the time that doesn't really inform our practice. Sometimes it's just there for the sake of it. So really good to have sort of very big technological voices bringing us back down to earth. Also, virtual reality, mixed reality. Oh, bring it on. Sounds absolutely awesome. Cannot wait for that to come about. How about you? What did you take away from Lou?
Well, I actually really like the concept of flipped learning because it's something I knew nothing about. And now with what Lou was saying, it's something I'd actually like to try and incorporate into my teaching practice at some point. It's just a really cool concept, and it's good that the students can learn at their own pace. And as she said, it's almost like they have a clone of the teacher.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. That sounds a little frightening. No,
well, at least no longer sounds messy.
No, that's right. I think that's great as well. And you're right. She said it caters to all kids. The kid that doesn't get it on the day might get it later that night, and that's really what this technology should be about: is to reaching out to more kids, shouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks so much for listening to the Staff Room. And thanks to our guests, Craig Kemp and Lou Cimetta. If you would like to follow us on Twitter, my handle is Michael_Royale, and that's with a double L for Royale. And Tessa's is Tessa_Johnson too.
Remember to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and to leave a review if you have any feedback or advice for us. That's been us for this episode, so until next time, this has been Tessa Johnson and Michael Royale.